What are we supposed to do when it's near impossible to talk about your favorite games anymore? When the discourse is so messy and toxic that it feels impossible to have a rational conversation about it. When everyone's expectations are so messy that there is no way to have just a clean cut take or reaction on a thing. What do you do? In case you've been living under a rock, it was just announced that the news that we were all speculating for a very long time, a Halo Combat Evolved remake is in the works. It's called Halo Campaign Evolved. It's a campaign-only remake similar to Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered from Call of Duty. It's going to be Unreal Engine 5, which I'll talk about in a moment, have two-player split screen, which is not something to be taken for granted anymore with Halo, which is nice to see come back, and four-player online co-op, which is a first for Halo CE, which is great. And it's going to have some modernization in it in terms of like backporting mechanics from newer games, weapons like the battle rifle, things like that were not present in one, to try to make it fit in better. And obviously a massive graphical overhaul. And ultimately, this was a training ground for Halo Studios to reinvest in new hires that needed to learn to use Unreal Engine 5 for whatever the future holds for Halo. And they needed a way to test it and make a game that felt like Halo, so they just went full bore with a full remake of the campaign from scratch, so to speak. They had the original voice cast come back and voice for the game and everything, which is a pretty big investment at that point. But the conversations about it are just a dumpster fire. And even within myself, it feels nigh impossible to communicate my feelings without ruining someone else's day who might have been excited for it, or getting into this weird cognitive dissonance with someone who is very excited for it and ignoring the good things. It's really hard. I am a huge, huge Halo fan. Now, despite what some portion of the internet seems to believe, because I had the opportunity to go on Digital Foundry and talk about Halo a couple different times for a couple videos, and because I happen to have a PlayStation neon sign, I must be a Halo hater, and therefore have no understanding or appreciation of the Halo franchise. Despite the fact that I have a smaller Halo neon sign, posters, helmets, statues, figures, every copy of the game I've been playing since day one on the PC. Not that owning any extra merch from a game has any quantitative impact on or like representation of your investment or appreciation for a game franchise. That would be buying way in too much into consumerism and is very classist. But if we're going to use a neon sign as the benchmark here, I own far more Halo related things and have spent far more money on Halo related things than this stupid sign. But the internet can't handle nuance, so I must be a Halo hater. Halo is probably up there in the top three. Pokemon, Halo, and old school RuneScape, back before it was old school. Probably top three like formative gaming experiences that really molded my gamer taste and gaming identity, which is not super unique, but like Halo is a big deal to me, and I want more Halo. I was really frustrated with the really long dev cycles we've had for the past couple games and the way they've continued to flounder, when to me it is so easy to just spin up more Halo content. We used to get it. We got ODST, we got the Spartan Strike and Spartan Assault little tablet games, which were pretty fun. We got Halo Wars. Like, they used to have more extra Halo stuff, and then they stopped doing it. They got way too invested in these long dev cycles and restarting progress over and over. I just want more Halo, man. We used to have 3-year dev cycles. I think id should be making a Covenant Slayer Doom style game, like maybe Noble 6 back on Reach, or lore, book accurate Master Chief or Emil or something. I think they should be making that. I think a long time ago they should have just thrown up a VR experience that was just like a couple people have now made dedicated Halo VR experiences inside of other VR games that took them 6 months maybe. There's no reason not to have just a basic little sandbox that we can play around in. I don't understand why everything has to be this massive thing now. So I just want more Halo. So Halo Campaign Evolved, I'm excited for. It's more Halo. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to have fun with it. But that doesn't take away the mountain of nuance that comes with that now, because there is a lot of problems. First of all, yet another Unreal Engine 5 game. The whole industry is standardizing on that, and they're using that engine so they can more easily hire contractors instead of career employees to learn their own engine, which is what most of the industry is doing, which is having a lot of creative and technical consequences for everyone using the same engine. It also plays into the revolving door of game dev jobs, which sucks. It's a second remake of a game, which is just kind of ridiculous. A lot of people don't like being sold the same thing over and over, and they are remaking it a second time while seemingly doing a lot of the things people didn't like from the first remake, which is what making it too shiny, trying to modernize it. There's a lot of arguments that 343, Halo Studios, Microsoft, whatever, have had more than 3 swings at making a modernized take on Halo, and each time it's been a bit of a flop, and therefore they should stop doing that. I'm mixed on that because Halo Infinite was actually great, and even the multiplayer was pretty great. They just went too heavy-handed on the monetization and not being able to support it. There's issues of the original artistic vision being compromised, from the modernization changes to little things, like one of the level designers popped up to talk about the fact that when you, in the Silent Cartographer level that they showcased in all of the preview coverage, they showcased that the Warthog can basically just drive up and mow down the hunters, when that dev spent forever like making sure the rocks were positioned so that it was actually a challenge to get the Warthog in there because it wasn't supposed to be possible, and that the destructive vehicles means that you can't do most of the Warthog tricks that you could do in the original game. The opening cutscenes to this level are much more drawn out and miss a lot of the cool points and vibe of the original game. This is a constant issue with remakes and remasters, and there was a pretty good video about this. If I can find it again, I will post it in the description, about why you should hate remakes. And I get that. There is a lot compromised about the original Halo CE vision, and that bums me out. That bums me out a lot about remakes. That is a huge problem across the board. I feel like remakes that don't just entirely turn it into a completely different game, like Final Fantasy VII or what Capcom's been doing with the Resident Evil remakes, they're always going to compromise on the original vision and feel like a little bit more of a cash grab. That being said, I can go back and play Halo CE with the original artistic vision whenever I want, on PC, on Xbox, or on modern Xbox and PC with the Master Chief Collection. Varying degrees of adaptability there, with the original Xbox being the truest, even if the lowest fidelity these days. But I have that option if I want the original game. And frankly, the original game, it's a great game. I think anyone who enjoys first-person shooter games and campaigns should play it, but some of the missions do not hold up super well. I'm not sure kids these days, so to speak, are going to care that much about it. I do. I'm going to enjoy it. And they're adding like 3 new levels as like a prequel or something to it, which I'm trying to figure out how that fits between Reach and this and whatever, nerd stuff, but like, cool. More Halo content. I am excited for it and I'm going to play it. So why then is it so impossible to separate that from the meta conversation around it these days? Why is that? Is it because we're adults now, whereas as kids we didn't care, we didn't understand, we didn't have access to that information? Was it because when I was a kid specifically, we had so little access to that information? We had magazines, we had eventually online articles and trailers and the Bungie Vidocs and stuff, but we didn't have quite as deeply rooted of game industry analysis and discourse that we have today. When I was 10, I wasn't worried about layoffs. Is it because gaming industry as a whole is just too hyper monetized and it's just a hellscape and we can't escape it? I don't know what the answers are here. It's really frustrating. And I watched a good buddy of mine who was really kind of on board with the remake, understanding that it would be compromised in some way, but like, heck yeah, let's play some Halo, just being like, yep, I just have to ignore the game now because anytime I see anyone talking about it, it's super toxic and that's just ruining it for me. And that sucks in a way that kind of hampers all of our enjoyment or excitement for a game. And of course, then we have this constant battle of like, well, you shouldn't be purely excited for a game. We should have integrity in our coverage of games so that you have all of this information and can make your best decision or whatever. But for something, for playtime, should playtime really have that much analysis going into it? But then, of course, that brings up games are a product or a service that you are paying for, and that consumer to business relationship shouldn't be exploited. So then, yes, we need that coverage. It's a mess. And it's impossible to talk about my favorite game series these days. Whether it's because Microsoft is directly contributing to a freaking genocide out in the world and is overall a horrible company these days, or because Xbox itself is a sinking ship that is likely to exit the console space in the next 5 years before we get a different Halo title, or because 343 Industries, Halo Studios, whatever they want to be called this week, has had such a colored history with poor performing Halo titles. And then, of course, I start wondering what the plan is. Of course, we've had inside information already come out that this complete shift to Unreal Engine 5 is Unreal Engine plus Blam, as they still have basically Reach's engine kind of shoved in there, which I think is fine. I think it partially continues to defeat the point of switching engines, just like the whole Slip Space engine they said for Infinite was not really a new engine. I think it kind of defeats the point of that, but I think it would be really hard to recreate the intangible Halo feel in a new engine from scratch, especially without so many of the original people. And if they lose that, then they lose everyone. So, like, I understand why they're doing this. But, like, it makes me wonder what the plan is. What do we get after this? Because the one thing I hate about remakes and remasters is the way it picks a often random title out of a franchise and ignores the rest. Which with something like Resident Evil isn't always a big deal. With games like God of War or Halo, for example, the games are connected. So when we get God of War 3 remastered on the PS4, and then you can't play any of the other 6 titles from the original run of the games on modern hardware because they're locked on the PS3 or older, that's kind of weird and kind of stupid. If we get Halo Campaign Evolved, we finally invite the PlayStation fans in to play Halo for the first time, which could be huge. Where do they go from there? There's no multiplayer to stay hooked onto. Are we just going to say, yep, play the game that started it all and then ignore the rest and come play the latest edition of Halo without any context from the rest of the games? Or are we just going to keep remaking 2 and 3 finally get a remaster of 3 for the first time since we've already had 1 and 2? Are we going to just port MCC over anyway, making the remake kind of pointless because MCC porting over seems like it would be easy since they already did it to PC and they're all x86 hardware anyway? Or are we getting a relaunch of Infinite with this new hybrid engine that's going to bring multiplayer back and put Infinite on PS5, which would be fascinating and could be huge for the franchise, honestly, but they would have to give it out free to people who already had it. That seems like not a policy problem since Gears of War has been doing that and whatever, but just saying they would have to not sell it back to the Xbox players. It'd be on Game Pass anyway, I guess. I want to be excited for games. YouTube and social media is covered with content and the sentiment of games aren't fun anymore. Things just don't feel the same. Why can't we have fun? Why are games bad these days? And I feel pretty confident that we could have some of our favorite games ever released today, and we would have just as negative, mixed, or toxic a reaction as we do to new games. I think the concept of gaming discourse is so muddied and messy now. And because no one wants to hear each other's opinions. I mean, I mentioned the whole thing with me being up on Digital Foundry. People look for every possible reason to discredit what someone else thinks about a freaking video game instead of either just listening or just muting out the discourse anyway. You don't need to take in what other people think about a game. You don't. You can just play the game. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to make this an evolving discussion. I think we're going to talk about it on the Dualcom podcast and maybe Party Chat in the future with BBK. I just want to get the ball rolling to start getting some feedback because I want to know why we can't just talk about games anymore. And I will admit, I am part of the problem. I am someone who will bring up all of these complaints because Halo is so important to me. And Halo specifically is such an impossible game to talk about because it's been out for 25 years. Well, as of next November, when the remake is probably coming out. It's been out for 25 years. It's been across a few different platforms now. Originally started as a Mac RTS game. People have developed formative core memories around an experience that doesn't exist anymore. People have so much romantic attachment to the multiplayer experience in that era of their life that cannot be recreated and does not exist anymore. And people started at different phases of the game. The people who started with 1, 2, or 3 are going to have completely different perspectives on how the game should feel and play compared to someone who started on Reach or 4 or 5. And everyone's got different feelings and expectations, and you can't just align those. There's no unified expectation of the franchise at this point, especially with how many games they've had. And I've done this with Pokemon too. I haven't made a video about it. I didn't want to be that person because I don't have anything new to say that you haven't heard, but like I've had Pokemania since I could read. Pokemon helped teach me to read. I didn't buy Scarlet Violet. It was a disaster on launch. And at this point, it's like, okay, it's going to run better on a Switch 2 than my Switch 1. Why bother right now? I didn't buy ZA either. I don't like what Nintendo and Game Freak are doing with the franchise. I don't like the weird policies. The stuff about the Kalos starters, mega forms being locked behind the seasonal PvP mode and only like one person each season gets it. Like, that is extremely disrespectful. And I realize if we go back, if we're talking about the discussion of like being a kid versus an adult, Game Freak's kind of always been that way with Pokemon, with these super time-limited, often Japan-only events to get Pokemon to allow you to complete the Pokedex. Like, it was always kind of abusive to the players in that regard, while sending the message of collect them all, catch them all. But like, I am part of that problem, where someone who's just like, yeah, I'm excited for more Pokemon, let's play Pokemon, and I'm like, no, that's a bad Pokemon. Like, we're all doing it. I just want to know how we can still enjoy the games, or still enjoy talking about them, when there's so much nuance and criticism to be had. I don't know what the answer is. It's just what I'm thinking about this weekend. I know I'm late to the discussion. I don't do reaction videos usually, so I'm not. It's Monday. This was announced on like Thursday or Friday or something, but just wanted to share some thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Sound off on the forums where you can support me, get early access to videos, ad-free versions, downloads, all that jazz. Go check out the DualCon podcast if you missed it. One of the best pieces of anything I've been a part of in my entire YouTube career, going back nearly 20 years now. So that's exciting. And remember to be kind. Rewind.